I really wanted to make this video just kind of leaning back, but I realized I got to be like within like 3 inches of my microphone to get good audio quality. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Ignition trilogy, and this video is going to be focusing on 2006 specifically, but you should also expect a video in the future talking about the Inika weapons, because when I was younger, I actually figured out a way, before I knew anything about digital electronics, to modify these weapons so that when you push the button on them, they'd flash as you would normally expect, if you're familiar with Inika weapons, but when you would squeeze the side of the battery box on the weapon, the light would just turn on and stay on. And then when you would squeeze it again, or like the other way, I don't remember exactly how I did it because I was a kid, but it was a very simple thing. It was like one piece of metal paper clip or something. I figured out how to bend a specific way. Point being, it would make the weapon turn on and off when you did one thing, or you'd press the button and it would do the normal flashing. So that's out of the way. 2006. For a long time, I gave 2006 Bionicle a lot of shit, let's be honest. This is just a personal opinion thing, right? When I saw 2006 for the first time, I think that I was pretty harsh on it myself back in, 2006. I still remember my first sets that I got that year. And I was harsh on it in some ways because this was the first year from Bionicle where we got enemies first. I mean, we didn't get the Toa Inika until after the Paraka. That was interesting. That was new. But also, I was very judgmental of these enemies for a handful of reasons. First off, the way that they were presented in commercials didn't speak to me. They were kind of bumbling and just like weird, but those are human characteristics, right? Whether they're played up for the story or for the commercials, that's, whatever. But these were the first enemies we got from Bionicle that actually had human traits to them. Before that, you had the Borak, which are my personal favorite enemies from Bionicle that aren't Rahi, obviously. And I don't consider Rahi enemies in the first place, but, I like the concept of the Borak, of the hive mind that they are, right? But they're, at the end of the day, mindless drones. Rakshi, mindless drones. Vaki, mindless drones. Vizrak, mindless drones. For all intents and purposes, they don't have individual character traits, but the Paraka do. For better or worse, whether it gets contradicted in certain parts of the story, that doesn't matter. The point is that LEGO at least tried to do something different and unique with these characters, and obviously kept going with that in later years. The Makuta, the Baraki sets, so on and so forth. Even with like 2009, where the enemies and the heroes were basically the same characters in a lot of ways, right? Anyway, so 2006, though. At the time, I disliked it for a handful of reasons, as, those I've mentioned, but also, seeing like the real big gaudy grins on the Paraka, the lack of functionality on these sets. My first Paraka set was the Black Paraka, which I always mispronounce the name of, so I'm not even going to bother here. And the reason I got that set was outside of it having those gold, just beautiful color, especially at the time, was the weapon. Just looked so cool. It had this like saw blade on it that reminded me of like the sun. It was just such a neat piece. In hindsight, it's a very hard piece to reuse, but it's still a cool piece to have, right? Generally speaking, though, the Paraka were something I was not terribly interested in once I got my first one. I still went out of my way to get a second with Thok, the white one. I probably mispronounced that too. I don't care. Still, though, the set these days do still look cohesive. Anyway, I kind of let it influence, though, my vision, my view, my opinions of Bionicle for years past, for several years past. Even after Bionicle's original cancellation in 2010, I never really swung back around to the 2006 storyline for a long time. And I don't hold it to like the same regard as, like 2001 through 2003, which are golden years for me as well, whether or not you agree. I think that as I've continued to grow up, my opinions over years like 2004, 2005 have started to kind of wane a little bit. Never bad. They're great toys, don't get me wrong, and I definitely think there are some highlights within there, but my opinions on 2006, 7, and 8 have also kind of upticked. They've swung up just a little bit. Number goes up. Just like you could subscribe and make these numbers go up. Anyway. So why is that the case, though? Well, first off, I could admire now what I couldn't admire as a kid. The fact that LEGO was trying to do something different with these sets. Whether or not it was something I agreed with, whether or not it was something I liked, at the very least it was new. And I can always appreciate that. I can appreciate the experimentation. Something else I didn't like about these sets, as I mentioned, was the lack of functionality. But was that really a big deal? I mean, yes, it was something I associated with early Bionicle. So I'm not saying that these sets shouldn't have had functions. but rather was 2006 really the year that cut them? Because I could see making a valid argument that kind of 2005 was in some ways. It was definitely the last year of functions for a reason. Those functions were dwindling, and many of them weren't terribly inspired, let's be honest. You might like or dislike the Vizirac. I personally like them, but at least the function on those sets is pretty cool. At the very least, it's unique, and yeah, it does require some pretty large pieces in order for it to work, but the concept doesn't. You could build something that works in a very similar way to the Vizirac on your own time with many other pieces, and the pieces generally are quite useful as well. But outside of the Vizirac, what other functions did we get in 2005? Like an arm curl on the Hordika? I was never a big fan of it even then, so why did I hold 2005 up to a higher standard than 2006 at that point in time? I don't know. I can't tell you. I was never interested in the past in getting any of the 2005 Titans. They just didn't speak to me. And I was kind of let down by the 2004 Titans. So I was like, I won't buy them. And I didn't. But I did buy all of the Titans for 2006. And what a set those were. I will say that for what it's worth, 2006 may have had the most buttoned up and consistently good Titans from, if not all of Bionicle, at the very least, the latter half, the second wind of Bionicle from 2006 through 2009. There are obviously 4 Titan sets for that year. There's also the play sets. There's the little Matoran in boxes as well. But focusing just on the Titans here for a moment, Brutaka has got to be one of the best builds from Bionicle. Just as an experience, as a singular set. Everything feels strategic in its placement on him, and when you finish the model, everything looks so good on him. It's not perfect, don't get me wrong. Could it be improved? I guarantee you somebody out there could do a better job, but that's not the point here. It's the fact that you got something so good at just $20 at the time, right? It's something that did something different. Again, introducing that pearl gold color to us Bionicle fans for the first time, if you didn't get any of those late 2005 sets, right? And using a color like that on enemies was really striking to me, right? I honestly wish it's something Lego would have done more, because obviously with the Paraka, we got Pearl Silver, we got Pearl Gold, we got Gunmetal. It was a nice sort of foray into these metallic colors, and I wish we would have seen it more. But the actual builds for each of these characters too were superb. Even with like maybe the weakest of the main 3 box sets from 2006, I'm pushing Umbra to the side here for a moment because he's kind of a special case, and I think you could absolutely kind of harp on him for sure. There are certain things Lego could have done better with that set, but ignoring that set for a moment, just focusing on Vizon and Finrak, I'm considering that the worst of the 3, not because it's bad, but because Brutaka sets the bar so exceptionally high, in my opinion, and Axon is definitely a more straightforward build, but still does some really interesting stuff. Has some fantastic design elements in him, and also is buttoned up quite nicely. The only thing about Vizon and Finrak that I think could be improved is the body is a little bit gappy, and that's basically it. And that's on Finrak specifically, because I think Vizon is a good build. He is another Paraka set. Full stop. Like, the only thing he doesn't have is a Zammer launcher on one hand. He doesn't have the weapon that, switches back and forth. That's fine. In place of that, he gives us the only reddish-brown armor piece that we got from the Anika style, of pieces. Anyway, doesn't matter. So generally speaking, I think that 2006 is a very strong year across the board. At the very least, the Anika look good as sets. I definitely have issues with their heads, don't get me wrong. And I do think that they still have issues. They still have problems. Some of the weapons are a little bit weird and clunky looking, but I get it. The Paraka. Whether or not I liked or hated them back in the day, I still appreciate them now. And I think overall as a full team, they're some of the best looking sets on a shelf to display, which is interesting because I rarely display them. I don't even have them all. In fact, I've never owned Avok and I've never owned Vison. Not because or Vizok, whatever. Not because I don't want to. I do. Just never gone out of my way to get them because I've never found a real reason to. So generally speaking, I think 2006 is a really good year. And it's one that has snuck up on me, but in a way that's pretty pleasant overall. Perfect? No. And I still like 2007 better. I think 2007 really found its stride in being its own thing, because while 2006 was confident in what it wanted to be, I don't think it quite knew what it wanted to be just yet. It wanted to be edgy. It wanted to be a little bit, corny and kooky and toy-ish, but it also wanted to tell a profound story. And it did okay at some of those things. Maybe a little too kooky sometimes. But 2007 really balanced it out in a way that I don't think Bionicle had done for many years up until that point. Maybe since even 2002. And that's saying a lot. 2003 is still a strong year, and I still prefer it in a lot of cases. But I could absolutely see the argument being made and even defend somebody who disagrees with my opinion there. And even somebody who maybe thinks that 2007 is their favorite year, or 2006 for that matter. I could see it. It's not mine, but I can understand that. And I will say, just before I cap off the video, that the combination models between the Matoran sets, for whatever you think about the Matoran sets, yeah, they're filler. Yeah, they don't introduce any new pieces outside of Dalu having a slightly recolored version of Nokama's mask. Those combination models are pretty damn good. Probably the best of that year outside of the Titan sets. And the Titans also have fantastic combinations. The Anika, the Paraka, not so much. And I don't know if the playsets have combinations. I think there might be one. I never really focused on the playsets. So with all that said, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe because it helps the channel get closer to 4,000. And of course, as always, check out the links for Discord, Instagram, and Patreon in the description. Let me know in the comments your favorite year from all of Bionicle. And if you want to talk about why, you can do so in the comments, or again, check out that Discord to take the conversation further. And I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.